And I'm going to let Mike take it away for Roast and Toast. Give me the chair.
Yeah. Well, good evening. Happy to be here with you for this event tonight. As I seem to be associated somewhat with public television in Kansas City, I feel almost compelled to say funding for tonight's dinner was made possible by Paul Silbersher and people like you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I wasn't going to read this next thing, but judging from some of the people in the audience, I feel like I should. Although it is probably not necessary, I need to make this statement before I start speaking. If, while I'm talking, anyone interrupts me, disputes what I'm saying, yells, screams, or behaves in a less than appropriate manner, you are now forewarned you could be invited to appear on Ruckus. We gather here in the spirit of celebration and respect to celebrate Rabbi Paul Silbersher's 85th birthday. This event has offered an answer to what is often a vexing problem for many synagogues: how to attract people to Friday services. The clear answer: a free meal. Pretty good turnout, though. I did some informal counting, and as far as I can tell, we have more people here than voted for Clay Chastain last month. This is Roast and Toast, time to cheer or jeer Rabbi Silbersher. We have some folks who volunteered to be a part of the program. Others, any of you will have a chance to speak when the volunteers have finished their remarks. Paul made one thing clear about tonight when he asked me to do this. He said, "Mike, I do not want just people getting up and saying only nice things about me." And I said, "Paul, I don't think that's going to be a problem." I met Paul about a decade ago. I was a new congregant at Kol Ami, the most recent synagogue from which he retired. I got a phone call from him that said, "I want to meet you. Come be my guest at lunch at the Raphael on the Country Club Plaza. I want you to be my guest. Be sure to be there." So I thought, well, what a nice invitation. This is really exciting. The spiritual leader of Kol Ami cares about me, wants to meet me, wants to get to know about me. And so I went. And to some extent, it was true. He did want to meet me. He did want to find out about me. But the real motive became clear shortly into our luncheon. He wanted to coerce me into giving a speech for the next Rosh Hashanah celebration. I resisted. I said, you know, I've done a lot of public speaking, but I've never done anything like that. I really don't think, you know, I'd be, but as some of you may know, he can be very persuasive. And I said, okay, I'll do it one time only. That was 9 times ago. I did, however, learn a valuable lesson from that luncheon. It was an old piece of wisdom that I have come now to believe is true. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Paul and I have been having lunch together since then, about once a month. On each occasion, Paul says to me, "Mike, you've got to know your story." But after these 2-hour lunches, 12 months a year, 10 years, I'm not sure that I yet know my story. But let me assure you, I certainly know his. A one-time page at NBC, headmaster at some ritzy prep school back east, Navy veteran, graduate of the new school in New York, able to do impressions of FDR, Winston Churchill, and on a day when his nasal congestion is severe, a pretty good Henry Kissinger. He is also very predictable. He will always, I guarantee you this will happen, he will always laugh when I imitate syndicated radio talk show host Mark Levin. Now this is not the rabbi, this is Mark Levin, the radio talk show host, who gets angry at some of his callers and says, "Get off the phone, you jerk, you moron, shut up!" He also loves, in fact, he wants me to constantly repeat what is a true story about the late U.S. Senator Arlen Specter. And as some of you may know, Arlen and I were cousins, first cousins. His mother and my father were brother and sister. But I did not know him very well. I rarely saw him while I was growing up. He was 10, 12, 13 years older than I and lived in a different part of the nation. I did meet him a time or two at events, but rarely. 3 years ago, our aunt, who still is alive and lives in Wichita, turned 100, and her son, who lives in Kansas City, had a party in her honor and invited relatives and friends of her to come to Kansas City for an event, and it was at Yaya's. And a relative said to me, Arlen's coming in, and he's heard that you're in broadcasting, he knows about you, he knows you're very interested in politics, he really wants to get to know you better, really looking forward to spending this time with you. So I said, well, that'd be wonderful. I'm delighted. So Joyce and I went. We were in this big room at Yaya's, private room. People were coming in. And finally, Arlen Specter and his entourage come entering the room. He goes around shaking hands with people he recognizes, relatives, he's hugging people. He comes toward me, and I think, well, this will be a big moment. We'll have a chance to reunite. And I said, Senator, good evening. And he said, and I'm not kidding, and he was quite serious, I don't believe we've met. What is your name? We did have a nice time that evening and had a chance to talk at some length and discuss his storied career. Sadly, he passed away about a year after that. Paul Silbersher believes now at age 85, he is finally entering middle age. Of course, he makes his calculations on what some think is an unproven scientific theory called the Methuselah scale. He's a genuine Renaissance man, versatile, multi-talented, a cantor, a rabbi, public speaker, counselor, mediator, tennis pro, a father 4 times, a husband almost as often. He is willing to speak his mind to anyone, at any time. He is afraid of no man, and only one woman, Marge Broderick. But we're all afraid of Marge Broderick. Brodkin, that one. I am really afraid of her now after Mr. Rabbi Silbersher is, I am pretty certain, I'm not 100% certain, but pretty certain that he is a Democrat and a big, big supporter of President Obama. At least I think he is. I noticed that after silent meditations at the Friday services, he manages to sneak in a reference to the president. Something about hoping the congregation's meditations and reflections are acceptable to Barack and our Redeemer. We're going to have several speakers that have said they would want to take part in the event this evening, and then we will open it up to anybody who wants to be involved. After our first speaker, we'll have Sam Atier, John Schuchart, Marshall and Judy Weingarten, and I believe Murray wants to say something, and then we'll have the event open to anyone who wants to take part. First speaker, however, is a guy who also celebrated his birthday the same day as Paul. It was April the 23rd. He is the past president of B'nai Yehuda, the past president of Kol Ami, and the past president, in fact, the first president of this synagogue, Temple Sinai. In fact, next month he's going to be opening his presidential library, featuring audio tapes of the most contentious board meetings of his career. I first met him when I joined Kol Ami, and he was the president. And on a Friday evening I was there, and I was delighted to have the opportunity to meet the president of the synagogue. And I will never forget the first words that he shared with me when we met. He said, "Dues are payable in advance." Words to live by. Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Gelb.